It is something that I felt was imperative to upholding my oath, because the institutions of our democracy are the bones that hold the body up. And if we eat away at those bones, the body starts to collapse. I did this out of judicious and thoughtful reflection, and I did it because I believe that it was the right thing to do based on my integrity and my oath of office.
I will not shirk my duty, and I will not violate my oath. I will support and I will defend the United States Constitution. And it is for that reason that I intend to fully support this impeachment inquiry and follow the facts. We have got to follow these facts where they lead us. And where we find ourselves today, the president has no one to blame but himself.
Two freshman House Democrats taking the impeachment fight to the communities they represent. Michigan Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin defended her position to support President Trump's impeachment in her home district yesterday. Her defense comes one day after two Republicans announced challenges to her seat next November. And New York Congressman Max Rose, who had been on the fence about pushing for an impeachment inquiry, announced his decision, as you saw, at that town hall in Staten Island yesterday. And Congressman Rose joins us now. He's a member of the House Homeland Security and Veterans Affairs Committees. He's also a veteran of the war in Afghanistan and recipient of the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. Congressman, great to see you this morning.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
So what knocked you off the fence on this?
Well, immediately when seeing this issue, it was clear it was a grave national security crisis that we had to get to the bottom of. And in the process, what we saw over the last few days, though, was clear obstruction from this administration that led me to believe that we have got to elevate this to that of an impeachment inquiry. But with that being said, I think it's important that we should note that this is a really tragic day for the United States of America. Nobody who takes an oath to the Constitution wants to be where we find ourselves to be right now. You know, I've taken an oath to the Constitution twice in my life. Once enlisting in the military nearly 10 years ago, and the second time earlier this year when I became a United States congressman. I take it just as seriously now as I did then when I went to Afghanistan. We've got to put politics aside, do the right thing, and uphold the Constitution, show the American people that even in the hard times, we can do what's right.
And Speaker Pelosi has made that point over the last week, too. This is not cause for celebration. She said this is a sad day in America when you take up an impeachment proceeding against any president. You talked about clear obstruction. You saw clear obstruction that made you push towards supporting the impeachment inquiry. What do you mean specifically? From the president, his public statements, or something else?
Well, let's put the public statements aside for a second. The White House is clearly resisting any effort to divulge and give up information. The Secretary of State has said he will not let State Department officials meet with the committee, be interviewed by them. Mayor Giuliani, once America's mayor, now America's hack lawyer, said that he wants to sue Congress. It's clear that this is where we have to be right now. But while we're on a fact-finding mission, we're also engaging in an effort to earn and maintain the trust of the American people. And as a consequence, it is vital, absolutely vital, that we don't, the Democratic caucus and Congress as a whole, we don't jump to conclusions. We engage in a deliberate and reasonable and fair process that earns the trust of the American people. We can't sell impeach the mofo T-shirts any longer. We can't bring chicken to hearings. This has got to be a solemn and serious process, and it has to be clear that no one luxuriates in this. And if we do that, we can bring this country together in this process.
This was not an easy choice for you, obviously, because it's such a heavy matter, but also because of the district you serve. Let's be honest. Staten Island was the only the borough in New York that went for President Trump, and it wasn't close, by 17 points in 2016. What was it like in the room last night at that town hall when you made the announcement? We heard some cheers, but more broadly, what are people in Staten Island saying?
Well, more broadly, people in Staten Island, I believe, are still trying to figure this situation out, and they also remain concerned with that which Americans are deeply concerned with, day-to-day bread and butter issues. You certainly mentioned my political reality. Probably no political expert out there would recommend that I do what I did yesterday. In fact, there are 19 House Republicans, 19, who are in seats that Donald Trump won by less than what he won my seat by. So I would hope that eventually those 19 House Republicans can show some semblance of political courage, some semblance of integrity, and join this inquiry.
The oath. I want to talk to you about the oath. You took it twice.
Yep.
Once en route to Kabul, once en route to Washington. We have a president of the United States who tried to get a foreign government, another foreign government, to interfere in American politics on his behalf. Talk about how the oath is more than just words.
Well, right now, I think about the young men and women who are in harm's way, wearing our nation's uniform. Afghanistan, Iraq, throughout the globe. What they're doing right now, that's a real sign of integrity, a real sign of courage. What I did yesterday, it barely pales in comparison to them. So what we're doing right now is we're doing our job. And that's what the American people put us in office for. Politics be damned. But let's also talk about politics for a brief moment. It's very clear, politics 101. Here's what the Republicans are going to do going forward. Here's what Donald Trump will do going forward. Two things. One is he will try to break the trust that the American people have in this investigation, the trust in Adam Schiff. And two, they'll try to say, well, they don't do anything. Just investigations. In fact, the president retweeted a video twice saying that just about me the other day. I wish we could put it on TV. It was such a lame video. They deserve all the public press, the free press that they can get. So we have got to point out as well, when they say all they do is investigations, 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 not only has the Democratic caucus passed substantive legislation in gun control, anti-corruption, and so many other issues that have left to languish on Mitch McConnell's desk. Let's not forget what the Republican Party did when they had the keys to the castle. They had the House, the Senate, and the White House. The only thing they accomplished was a tax scam for the wealthiest amongst us and the largest corporations. That's what they are capable of. So we're not going to listen to this crap about that we are only capable of investigations. We're going to continue to serve the American people.
Congressman, in districts like yours that are red, very red districts, like your district, as we were just mentioning, Donald Trump won by 17 points in 2016. What should be the Democrats' messaging on impeachment in those, for you guys that are in those red districts? Like, how should we message?
So first of all, my district's not a red district.
Okay.
Okay, it went for Donald Trump in 2016. It also went for me in 2018. What my district is the patriotic district. It wants to see people put the country first, and it wants to see us finally get back to business, serving the American people and upholding the Constitution. They are sick and tired of rampant corruption in Washington, D.C. You know what I often hear about this issue? And this is new, 5, 6, 7 days old. Often hear, well, it's clear that the president did something wrong, but doesn't everyone do that? Didn't he just get caught? Aren't we just being unfair to him? Eventually, we have to get at that. We have to get at the problem that the American people think that when people go to Washington, D.C., they just serve themselves, or they serve their families or their foundations or whatever else it might be. And that's not just elected officials. That's corporate PACs, that's federal lobbyists, that's the entire swamp that Donald Trump said he wanted to drain, and it only appears he has become a part of. We have to realign ourselves and focus on addressing this key concern of the American people.
Congressman, briefly as the last question, you're also on the Homeland Security Committee. Wanted to get you on two things about the border crisis. Yesterday, the administration announced they're looking to collect DNA samples from those booked in federal immigration custody to move forward to try to create a database that could lead to arrests and deportation. Also, what is your take on that realistic stance? And then briefly, your thoughts on the president wanting a moat and alligators at the border too.
So the president has repeatedly tried to politicize this issue. And it's a clear issue that not only centers around our security, but it also centers around our values. And what we're constantly presented with is this false choice. Either you can maintain your values, the very values that built this country, the very values of being a magnet for the world's brightest, most industrious, or you can have security. I completely reject that premise. Completely. Our men and women providing security to our nation are capable of preserving our security and having a sound immigration system and doing it in a moral way. It's unfortunate the rhetoric that this president has used. It's unfortunate the ways in which they have attempted to implement harsh and xenophobic policies that have only tried to rip us apart rather than bring us together. And I look forward to a new day in this country when we can have truly comprehensive immigration reform, one that is moral and substantive.
With alligators or without?
Zero alligators,
No
buddy.
alligators.
Zero,
Okay.
zero
Just want to get you on
alligators.
the record on
Yeah,
that.
We still got to do a show on Staten Island. You promised me that a couple of months ago.
We were just talking about
I have a firm commitment from the Morning Joe Industrial Complex.
What about traffic getting there?
Yeah, that's the issue.
He's working on that, the bridge.
We're working on traffic.
Congressman Max Rose of New York, thanks so much for your time this morning and all you've given the country over the years.
Thank you so much for
Appreciate
saying
you.
that.
Still ahead, 2020 candidate Bernie Sanders hospitalized for a blocked artery. We'll have the latest on his health and what it may mean for his presidential campaign. Plus, the new polling that shows Elizabeth Warren passing Joe Biden for the top spot. Morning Joe's coming back in a moment.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.